Hey there gamers, welcome back to the Board Game Co channel, and today we have a preview of Norsemen. Well, hey there gamers, it's Professor Meg here, and welcome back to the Board Game Co channel. Today we have a preview of Norsemen. Thank you to Skelly Games for sponsoring this video, and you can check out their game found link down below because their campaign is now live. That being said, this is a prototype that is in front of me. Everything is subject to change, but it's going to give you a great feel of what the game is going to play like. Now in Norsemen, this is going to be a Euro-style game that's going to feel quite heavy, and you are going to have all of your different workers that you are placing out throughout the game to accomplish different goals for victory points. Now this is simulating the Viking Norse mythology, not mythology, the actual history of the Viking era, and the things that happened when they ventured out. So over these 5 rounds you're going to explore out and then return back home, and it's going to simulate that type of a feeling. And with that, you're going to start the game off with very few workers, and your workers are performing different actions for you, and you're going to use that to unlock as many of your workers as you're able to do within different ladders that have the different skills of the workers that you are using. So to have what I'm saying make a little bit more sense, the board we have set up in front of me is for a 3-player game, and you can see a player board here where there are these horn type symbols, and those are your lawmakers. You also have your forts, your settlements, and your ships. So those are the different types of workers that you are using to accomplish different goals to move up the victory point track and come out on top of being the best Viking. Now at the beginning of the game, you're going to start off with just lawmakers and ships, but you also have a special worker called a Jarl, and they're going to be up here, and you're going to be able to use them for special actions that everyone is vying for that is off of the player board, which can be very, very interesting and also very competitive. So when we get to that, I will cover that, but that is going to be this board over here where you are placing the Jarls. Now this is set up midway throughout the game, but as I said, you will be playing over the course of 5 rounds, and during those 5 rounds there are 3 different phases. So going through those phases, you are first going to go through your exploration, then your expansion, and then you're going to return before the next phase begins. Now on top of that, the game also separates some of the components into different ages. So you have cards over here that players are going to be obtaining, and there's age 1, 2, and 3, and there are also the tiles that are appearing here, where the blue ones, Sweden, Norway, and Denmark, are always available at the beginning of the game, and over the course of the game, new tiles are unveiled. You also start with England and Ireland showing because they are age 1, but as age 2, 3, 4, and 5 come along, the different tiles will spawn and go in the respective slots of where they belong on the board. This is going to open up new opportunities for scoring and for abilities for you to be placing your different building types, as well as sending your lawmakers to take the thing action that is on the cards. Now that is the general flow of the game, is that over the course of the game, the map is going to be expanding for you, opening up more and more spots for worker placement, and you'll be using your different boards, upgrading up these different ladders with your different workers to be able to get them out onto this board and have more actions available, but you'll also be using your decks for the exploration phase. So with that, I'm going to get into the 3 main phases of the game, which you will play each round because they're each very unique and important. The exploration phase is played simultaneously with all players taking their turns at the same time, making sure to not look at what other players are doing, but with that you will take your deck and you will unveil different cards using both your lawmakers and available ships to place them onto these cards. So for example, I would flip this one over, and this one reveals Scandinavia. This means I'm able to actually take an action anywhere in Scandinavia, which is your beginning areas. This is a starter card that starts in your deck, so it's pretty basic, but I now have an option to place a ship here, which will provide me with 1 fabric good for the rest of this round, and I would gain a coin, or I can choose to just continue unveiling cards. Now where this one isn't great, I don't necessarily need it right now, I'm going to continue unveiling cards, and we'll see what happens. Alright, here we have Sweden, and this does have a skull picture here, which means that my ship would take damage if I had 2 of these shown. So if I do have 2 of these showing, I have to take one of my ships that are available and move them over to the broken side. But luckily for now, that's just our first one. And this card is going to provide us 3 wood if we place a ship here. That's pretty good, so I am going to choose to place a ship here for 3 wood. And I'm also going to choose to take a Lawmaker and send them to Sweden to take an action during a later phase. Now I'm going to continue drawing cards, and here we have Sicily. Sicily is newly added to the board, and this also adds a gem for me for set collection during end of the round scoring, which we'll go over later. But this is also a card that would provide 3 victory points at the end of the game, and this would provide for my ship 2 axes and 2 wood. So again, I'm going to choose to place a ship here to have them provide those abilities, and where I have 3 Lawmakers, I think it's also a great idea to send one of them to Sicily as well. I'm going to keep flipping cards, even though if I do get a damage, I'll have to damage a ship. I still have 2 ships available, so I'm going to choose to keep going. And here we have Greenland. This is providing me with another gem. And if I have a ship here, I also have a 3rd gem available for the end of round. Again, this is going to be important, but it would also provide me with a fabric, and I would be able to gain a coin for going here. So I will do that and place my ship here, and we could end up with a broken ship, but I think it is in our best bet that we should keep going. Should we have someone go to Greenland? No, we can hold off and not do that, but we'll flip to the next card. And here we have Iceland. Wow, this is working out really great. But we will add a ship here, and this is going to allow us to draw a card and gain a coin as well. So we will add a ship over here. Now, the abilities that we have here with our ships actually won't trigger until we are done with this phase, which I feel like we should maybe stop now. But this one would allow us to add another card from the top of our deck into the row, so that could be very important. So I think that we will stop drawing and instead have that trigger. So all players would do this, unveiling the different cards, taking the different injuries to their boats if they need to, and choosing to place both their boats and their Lawmakers onto these cards for the actions that will be available to them during the next phase. And with that, going through the green player's turn, they would gain a coin, and they would also gain another coin as well as the top card of their deck, which would be a skull. So that would damage a ship if there was one available. And going through the actions, once this player chooses to stop, they would gain a coin here as well as a coin here and the top card of their deck. So we'll give them the coins here. And the top card would be England. So this is one that they could choose to put a ship onto, but they don't have one available. And it would provide 2 axes during the round, but again, they aren't able to. They could choose to put a Lawmaker here, which, sure, we will have one go here to be sent to England. Now that's the exploration phase, and players are doing that with their own decks, and it's a personal puzzle where you are doing it simultaneously, choosing when you want to stop and what benefits you think you might need, especially where you want to place your ships and your Lawmakers. But after that, you go on to the expansion phase, and that's going to be done in turn order, where players are going to be taking different actions with everything that they had planned, and this is when your Jarls are going to come into play. So there are actions that you'll be able to take during this phase that are out along the board, but one of the most important things that you're going to be doing is interacting with this Jarl board, which is set and used by all players. So players are vying for control over the different areas on this board, because when you take the action first, you take it with the best ability possible, and you have negative effects if you're not the first person to take that action. These are the actions that are going to help you move all of your workers up the different ladder boards to be able to use them for future rounds, as well as unlocking victory points, because the ones at the bottom do provide victory points for you as well. Now these actions can vary depending on the number of players in the game, and we have it currently set up for a 3-player game, but this is the board where you would place to be able to move up for your boat track, your settlements, your forts, as well as drawing cards, and moving your Lawmakers up. Drawing cards is really interesting. If you are the first one to place it there, you gain coins, but you also are able to draw four cards and keep 2 of them, giving you the most choices possible and quite a bit of an advantage. Gaining cards can be very strong in this game because you can choose to either immediately put them into your row or you can put them on top of your deck. So that's a way that you are able to immediately put a card into play, and if you have a ship or Lawmaker that you have available to place onto it, that can be very important. Or you can put it on top of your deck for use for the future round. Now all players have 2 of these Jarl tokens, so they will be placing them in respective areas on this board. As I said, trying to take the actions in the first row, but if they are not able to because someone else is already there, they will then take the penalty, which could just be something less, or sometimes it's something that will actually harm you, such as building ships will do damage, where these ships will come in damaged and cost you money to repair them, as opposed to coming in available ready to use that round. Another important thing that players can do during the expansion phase is they're able to use their Lawmakers to take the thing actions that are on the cards of the areas that they visited. So for example, for this player here, they went to Sweden, Sicily, and England, so they would take their markers and send them to the appropriate places where they're available to be taken as an action, but you don't have to do it until it comes time for that action to be available. So during the expansion phase, you could choose on your turn to take the thing action where one of your Lawmakers are, and for here in Sicily, you could choose to take the action, which is if you have at least 3 axes, you can get 6 points. Now for this player here, they actually don't have that many, but they could if they did have a ship that was available to place here. So for example, if it was set up like this, they would be able to take this action to gain 6 victory points along the track. Finally, another important thing that players are going after are these shared goals here. So there are these goals that will award different victory points depending on when you are the one to accomplish it. The first player to accomplish it gets the most victory points, and then going forward after that, at the end of the game, players will get victory points not only for what they've placed out, but you are getting the points immediately when you are able to take that different goal. Now to be able to do so, you need to use either a Jarl or a ship and place it in this area of your board. And when you do so, you are able to take 2 coins, but you can also, instead of taking the 2 coins, take one of your cubes and place it in this area, claiming that goal. This is why it can be really important not only to work toward your goals, but be able to have the economy to claim the goal as soon as you have accomplished it, because other players may see you accomplishing those goals and try to get in there ahead of you to claim the goal, because they may get it after you but be able to claim it ahead of you. Now during the 3rd phase, which is the return phase, players would first change the player order if there were any Lawspeakers here near the player order track to adjust that. So if there was, the player order would then change for the following rounds. And then after that, players would score for lore majorities. So where I noted that this player played the 3 different green gems, they would be able to score for having majority of that if they had majority against the other players. So for example, in a 3-player game, they would gain 3 victory points, whereas their opponents would gain 2 and 1 victory points respectively. So every round it can be very important to have the set collection within the cards that you have played to get an extra edge on victory points against your opponents. Now after this, players will use any effects that are end of turn effects, such as settlement, which will give you victory points or potentially coins and things like that, and you will resolve these in player order, going through all of the different buildings and legendary things that could provide any benefits for players. And then this is when you would return all of your workers that you normally would, such as your Jarls, your ships, and your Lawspeakers. Now you'll take all of those back to your player board, whereas your settlements and your forts will stay on the board because those are in play round over round. As soon as you play them, they will stay where they are. There are also ports in the game that players may have, and ports allow players to hold on to one of these cards for the next round. They can be very, very strong. You can only have up to 2. You can have as little as 0, but the normal is usually 1. So this is when ports would be triggered, and then a new tile would be revealed and placed out along the board. Throughout the 5 different rounds of the game, players are going to use these different phases to make the most that they can, but the exploration and the expansion phases are really the most important. The exploration phase, you're going to be doing as much as you can, but during the expansion phase, there are a lot of things that you're going to be able to do, especially interacting with the different area tiles that come out for the different places. Now, they're all very unique, and they do a lot with resource management, where you're going to be exchanging different things to create either points or money and things like that. You are going to be able to have your different resources that you generate from your ships, but it's also very important that you are every turn use this conversion chart here, where you are also able to pay for any resources that you aren't able to use. Now again, you can only do this once, so for example, if you don't have fabric, you have to pay 4 coins for it, and that's the only thing that you are able to substitute, but some abilities might allow you to pay for extra things, but normally you can only do one. But that's one way that you're going to be able to use this board to use those resources to exchange for everything that you can. Now, for example, here in Sicily, this ability for the settlement is it always provides a gem for you, which would help even more with that gem set collection, but also it provides 1 victory point for each Lawspeaker that you've removed from your player board. So for this player, it would be 2 victory points, round over round, because their settlement will stay there. But another example where that one you would gain victory points depending on the number of Lawspeakers that you remove. Over here in Greenland, you can see that if you have 3 wood, it provides 3 victory points, but that only does it once, and that won't add up. So for example, if you had 6 wood, that would not be 6 victory points. So the different areas are balanced between the different ages and when they are available, but these can be a strong way for players to try to get victory points ahead of their opponents, especially when they have their settlements there at the beginning of the game. Another thing that players are going to have, which makes a huge difference game over game, is the different leaders that they will play as. You have 2 that you were able to choose from when you start the game, and the ones that you choose really are a great homage to Norse history, where it really immerses you in the game and makes you feel like you are in this Norse world, going out, expanding, exploring, and then returning back home only to do it again the next day. Now, for example, we have our leader over here, and this one would provide an ongoing ability, which is that you get an extra trade per action, and that trade costs you 2 coins less. So where I was talking about here, that conversion of the different items that you are able to pay for to substitute in the different trades when you need different items, she is able to instead pay a bit less and able to pay for 2 of those different items instead of just 1. Overall, Norsemen is going to be a very thinky puzzle and feel very much like a Euro game, where you're going to start off with as little as possible, and you're going to use that to make strategic choices, maneuver around your opponents. You know, when they take something that you may need, you're going to pivot around it, and then after that you're going to get stronger and stronger, developing into the different ladders that you choose to play with. I know that when I play, I like to go into different skill trees, so you may choose to go for more ships or things like that, and when you do get that final tile in the different trees, you get the legendary one, which does provide extra victory points. So that's definitely a reason for you to lean into different specialties throughout the game, which will make you stronger and stronger for certain things and make some actions easier, making it even easier for you to accumulate victory points. Thank you to Skelly Games for sponsoring this video. As I said, you can check out their game found link down below for everything that they have planned. I am Professor Meg, and thank you all for watching the Board Game Co channel. I'll see you next time. Bye.